Hello there and welcome to the Weather Studio Live. It's 1 p.m. It's the 10th of December, 14 days till Christmas Eve. I hope you've been a good boy, Aidan. I'm Clare and Aidan.
I'm Aidan McGivern. As always, we're broadcasting live from the Met Office HQ in Exeter. And do send us in your comments, your questions. We've had a few already. A lot about snow already, of course, because the weather is a bit on the chilly side at the moment. So people getting excited about snow. It's nice to see a bit of the white stuff before Christmas, isn't it?
Absolutely, it is. Now, today we're talking global weather as well. We're heading down to southern parts of Africa, where things are very tricky there, and even further south down towards Australia. We have a global meteorologist, a forecaster with us today. Nick Silkstone. We'll be talking to him in a moment. What else is coming up though, Aidan?
And of course, the oceanic patterns that may be causing all of those things.
Yeah, it's interesting.
But back home, we're going to be talking about the highly changeable weather across the UK at the moment. Wind and rain has already brought some disruption to parts of the UK, and the weather stays, well, very mixed over the next few days and on the cold side. So we're going to be looking at that, and we're going to be talking about where, if anywhere, we'll see any snow over the next 7 days. Yes. But also, really interesting jet stream to look at, if you like that sort of thing, of course.
Yes, lots of questions coming in about snow, even blizzards. That's another word which I don't know whether we could actually use across the Highlands of Scotland. They're seeing a lot of snow showers tomorrow and strong winds as well. Aguido Fawkes has messaged on YouTube saying, considering that the majority of weather comes in from the west, from the Atlantic, why do all weather presenters stand there? It's infuriating. Well, I'm so sorry about that, Aguido Fawkes. Actually, it's traditional. We do stand on the west. There's a mass of water there, so we can actually cover most of the UK, including obviously the east to the west and Northern Ireland. So sometimes we do touch on southern parts of Ireland, so it's easier to be able to cover all the land mass. I
try and step back a little bit sometimes if there's something interesting to look at, and of course other weather presenters who look at other parts of the world, they do stand on the other side. Yeah. So for example, if you look at the Welsh weather, S4C, they stand on the other side of the screen.
In fact, when I worked at Norwich Weather Centre for the Met Office, I stood over the North Sea because it was easier to do that.
So you can wave your right hand and your left hand.
Do both, yeah.
I don't think I'd be able to do the right.
So we'll be answering a lot of your questions through this next 25 minutes or so, but let's crack on with what's happening elsewhere in the world. And this actually made headline news yesterday. 2 images. Now, where in the world is that? Well, that's actually Victoria Falls, isn't it?
Yeah. You wouldn't think by looking at that that it's Victoria Falls, because the Victoria Falls is so famous for being such a mighty waterfall. On the top there, that's more typical conditions, but recent days, images like this have appeared in the media.
So Victoria Falls sits on the Zambezi River. The Zambezi River is the border between Zambia and Zimbabwe across southern parts of Africa. It's a huge river, stretches 2,500 kilometres towards the Indian Ocean. And this is known as the most powerful and the biggest waterfall in the world. Now, there are waterfalls which are deeper, the highest one being Angel Falls, and there are ones which are wider, being the Cone Falls. So the Angel Falls is in Venezuela, Cone Falls is in Laos, which is along the Mekong River, and this one here is just spectacular because of the immense volume of water, which keeps the delicate ecosystems in this area in balance, but sometimes out of balance as well, and this is what's happening right now.
Also known as the smoke that thunders, because you get this huge amount of water spray and that looks like smoke when it's really powerful, and obviously you'll have the thundering sound with that as well. But not at the moment. At the moment it's in a particularly dry state. Why is that the case at the moment? Is there anything that's happened that's unusual with their weather patterns? We thought we'd bring in Nick Silkstone, regular on the Weather Studio Live, fan favourite, to chat. Now, Nick, tell us a bit, for those who haven't seen you before, about what you do here at the Met Office.
So at the Met Office, I work on what we call our global guidance unit. We look at UK interests, basically outside of the UK, worldwide, typically ranging for the next 7 to 10 days, but a couple of things we do look even a little bit further than that.
Yeah. Right. And I just want to show you a comparison with the satellite images as well. So this is about this time of year, but 4 years ago. And we're looking at this kind of area. And if you just watch how the colours change, I'm going to put it forward to the current satellite image or from a few days ago. So this is 2019, 2015, 2019.
Quite some contrast, isn't there?
Yeah.
Like this is visible, so we're just looking colours like we would see with the eye. So it's basically how green is it, which is showing healthy vegetation, you know, soil moisture is there, and how brown is it, which is arid. And you know, previously, much greener in the sun. I know there's a few clouds which pollute it. Unfortunately, it's hard to find a clear day.
It is, yeah.
But if you look at the most recent images, it's much browner in this neck of the woods, which indicates basically very dry. Vegetation's not doing well.
And that's the Zambezi River is there, and that's Victoria Falls is around there. That's Zambia to the north, and that's Zimbabwe to the south. Okay.
Absolutely.
So why has it been so dry, and how long has it been so dry for?
So this event has been ongoing to some regard for a number of years now, but particularly in late 2018, there were signals that the rainy season, so 1 year ago, which in this part of the world, the rainy season is roughly from, as we know, November through to April, was going to be much weaker than expected. So rainfall was expected to be really in deficit during the last wet season. Then you reach April through to pretty much now, and that's the dry season when very little falls. Yeah.
This graph shows it. The months there are numbered along the bottom, so this is June to August here, virtually nothing.
And this is the data for Victoria Falls itself, and it's amazing the jump to the wet season. So in November, expected rainfall is around 70 millimetres, and it hikes up to 170 millimetres during December as well as January. So this is really important rainfall for this part of the world.
Exactly. The rainfall that falls at this time is what all the crops grow on, all the plants live off for the year, and the rivers live off too. And the water levels in the rivers and everything will just continuously drop through the dry season until it's recharged again at the start of the next very wet season. But last year, 2018, 2019, this wet season was really underwhelming. There was much less rainfall than normal, which meant that it was unable to recharge the rivers, the soils, for example. So as we've come to the end of the lean or dry season in that part of the world, that's why now we're seeing the satellite looking brown, arid, and the levels of the river Zambezi so low.
Let's get a map of Africa up so we can actually see in perspective of where everything is. So obviously Zimbabwe's down here, that's Victoria Falls there, that's Zambia there, and then this is East Africa, this is Somalia, Kenya and Tanzania, and they've had a lot of rain recently.
Correct. So there is something of a seesaw type effect, or what we call a dipole, which is almost where we have oscillating between wet and dry weather, and over a period of years across basically parts of southern Africa and parts of eastern Africa. That's largely to do with temperature contrast along the East African coastline.
Right.
So if you can think of it in a simple terms, almost like a land sea breeze in the UK. If you've got a warm land and a colder sea, you have a stronger contrast, and that almost stirs up a stronger sea breeze and a stronger easterly flow as it is here. And for this part of Africa, which we're discussing, that strong contrast brings in stronger than normal easterly winds that pulls in moisture off the tropical southwest Indian Ocean. At the moment, we've got what's called a positive Indian Ocean dipole. This is almost like an ENSO-like state in the Indian Ocean, which is differences in sea surface temperatures where it's anomalously warm and cold. And at the moment, we're coming towards the end of one of the strongest events ever, where the sea surface temperatures off Eastern Africa are basically as warm as, much warmer than average. That reduces this contrast, and for this part of the world where we rely on these easterly winds, that reduced contrast has meant weaker easterly winds in general, and that's mean a reduction in rainfall amounts.
Wow, okay. However, if we put on the rainfall for the next few days, they have had some rain down here. Not enough yet, obviously, because that photograph of Victoria Falls was only taken a couple of days ago. But we can see the rains are slowly enhancing.
So this is Thursday.
Is this something which is going to continue? Are we going to see a good wet season?
So in addition to the moisture, which is pumped in from the east, there is actually influences of the jet, or the subtropical jet, that runs up from across Antarctica, and is almost like a westerly belt of winds across the southern hemisphere as well. At the moment, or over the last couple of weeks, we've had a slow-moving upper trough, which has been sat across South Africa, which basically encourages thunderstorm activity daily across this region, and that in recent weeks has actually allowed them to pep up rainfall and have quite a good a good spell of rain. That's only in recent weeks, but coming on the back of a very dry season last year, that has only put a very small dent into the soil moisture deficits. And in general, with this positive IOD only slowly waning, we do expect on a seasonal scale rainfall to remain probably below average in this region again for the upcoming wet season.
And this has a knock-on effect elsewhere in the world. We're going to go down to Australia now, where I'm sure a lot of you have seen the horrendous smoke across Sydney at the moment. It's toxic fumes, and obviously visibility is poor, and it means a lot of people are suffering with their health. This is New South Wales. You can see the smoke billowing from the land there, can't you, Aidan?
Yeah, there's a couple of things going on in this animating movie here. We've got, let me just point out the smoke billowing into the sea there at upper levels, so at higher levels, and then you can see some of it creeping back in as a sea breeze develops, so as the winds change through the day and they start to push that smoke back inland. But further north, near Brisbane, huge thunderstorm developing. They could do with that further south, couldn't they?
So what's been happening in Australia, because they have been suffering from drought across this part of the country for quite some time now?
It has, so related to El Nino, or the past El Nino event, which has long since decayed, should I say, the positive Indian Ocean dipole. Those two events both lead to much drier than average conditions across much of central and southern, away from the extreme south again, but much of southern Australia. And those two things, so the El Nino event, as that faded, the IOD event sort of increased in its potency this year, have basically added yet another very, very dry season across central and southern Australia. So it means that the ground is very dry,
So parched,
so much fuel, and anything like that ignites a fire, particularly in periods of strong winds, which can fan the flames, means that they're able to just grow with absolute abundance.
And it's the winds pick up some strength with the heat, and then obviously that distributes the fire elsewhere, and obviously raises the temperature as well. So everything is pretty much a hazard.
Absolutely. It's almost like when you blow on a fire, or like in a little log burner at home, that extra oxygen really does fan the flames and increases it. Strong winds are needed for fires to be almost extreme, to grow, to move quickly, to be out there most severe. When winds are light, it's less of a problem. They're easy to contain. They don't move anywhere, and they're generally less.
In fact, we've got the latest global model of the rain for the next few days, Aidan, haven't we? Which actually shows that there will be some rain pushing into New South Wales. As Aidan said, most of it's been further north across Queensland. But they really do need it further south, and you can see the distribution of that rain. And so Sydney sits to the south of Newcastle. It's on the east side of New South Wales, and a little bit of rain is trying to develop and push in. There's high pressure there, and it's just sort of circulating around, isn't it? Circulating around the high. Not a lot, really, to be honest.
No.
But that's exactly what they do need to sort of quench the land.
That's it. Unfortunately, where the rainfall's signalled, it's generally the far northeastern corner of New South Wales, and then parts of Queensland. And so much of the areas, such as around Sydney, expected by fire, are expected to see little or very little rainfall over the coming weeks.
In fact, on our latest Mostly Weather podcast, we talked to Dr. Jeff Knight about other big drivers elsewhere in the world which has an effect on Australia, and one of them was the SSW, which happened earlier this year, which really just enhanced the drier winds across Australia, which meant that the air was even drier and less chance of rainfall.
That's it. When this vortex warms out, as it normally does around sort of November, December, that's usually a few weeks or a month beyond that is when the fire season starts. The SSW this year may have allowed the patterns across Australia to become almost into whack, to allow their fire season to start much earlier than average, which I think may well have been the case this year. Coupled with that IOD event, which means lots of dry, warm air is pushed into the northwest of the country as well. It's a recipe for quite severe fire.
SSW, of course, sudden stratospheric warming. We talked about it a week or two ago with a scientist from the Met Office, Dr. Jeff Knight, and that's essentially a change in weather patterns way up in the sky above the poles. And if you want to find out more about that and how it impacts the UK, but also how it's impacted the Southern Hemisphere recently, that's, as Claire said, on the Mostly Weather podcast that we produce here at the Met Office.
Brilliant.
Nick, thank you very much. We'll see you again.
Take care.
I know
Thank
you're
you,
really
Nick.
busy. You can go back upstairs now. I really appreciate that. In fact, we have had a question about the Victoria Falls from someone here who's saying how much rain, how much water falls across the Victoria Falls in a day. Well, actually, I've got a stat here for you. Every minute, when it's a business as usual situation, 5 million cubic meters of water falls over the Victoria Falls, particularly in the wet season. That's obviously when it's the most prolific. And that was from Jordan Smith on YouTube. Thank
Interesting
you very much
question.
for that question.
Damien Gray, YouTube, leads us nicely into today's weather. Are there any weather warnings in the UK? Yep, there's plenty of weather warnings in the UK at the moment, and there have been some impacts on the roads already today from the winds. The A1 impacted heading in towards Edinburgh. I understand there's overturned lorry, a couple of overturned lorries there because of the winds. And the winds, there is a wind warning for eastern and southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England and parts of Wales. There are also rain warnings. But before we go into the details on those, this is the more recent satellite and radar image there, and you can just see the extent of the wet weather across the UK. So Scotland really soaking up the worst of the rainfall, Western Scotland in particular, where there is that rain warning. Northern Ireland, wet at the moment, and outbreaks of rain virtually everywhere else. And really there's not a great deal of let up through the rest of the day. It stays very wet and windy. These are where the weather warnings are. So the rain warning for Western Scotland expires, but then we've got other warnings across the country. And one notable thing, of course, the winds at the moment, particularly ahead of the heaviest rainfall. And you can see a big, actually, let's put on the isobars and the fronts. You can see a big change in the wind direction along this cold front. So this is 2 p.m, so half an hour or so. And it's the squeeze in the winds that you can see quite nicely there, where the strongest wind gusts are expected during the rest of the afternoon, just ahead of that cold front. And there are a couple of things going on, aren't there, Claire?
Yes. First of all, it's that wall of cloud and rain which produces such intense bursts of rain called line convection. And that wall of cloud, the winds really explosively rising into the mid-atmosphere, causes some really squally conditions. And you can see the line convection actually just on the radar there. You can see that's an intense, very narrow band of heavy rain, which actually migrates from Ireland and Scotland down towards Northern England and will cause problems on the roads because the visibility will go down to pretty much zero as the winds pick up some strength. So you've got an increase of wind, you've got an increase of rain, and it won't last for very long, but even so, when it happens,
you know when it hits.
Horrible.
You know when it hits because it's suddenly heavy rainfall and a real increase in those wind speeds. Really lively weather that just hits places, a wall of heavy weather. But only for, 15-20 minutes or so as it goes through. And you can see it's about there at 4 p.m, so, moving through Northern England, East Wales into the southwest at 4 p.m. Once that goes through, the worst of the winds and rain are over. But ahead of that as well, we've got some strong wind gusts, something known as a sort of lee gustiness, so where the air is quite stable, so the winds are travelling along quite nicely, where the strongest winds are high in the sky, but then those winds hit higher ground or mountains and hills, and they start bouncing. It becomes more buoyant, and that's why if we turn on the wind gusts, you can see over these areas, zoom out a little bit, so the scale is there, and 50, 60, and in some spots around exposed coasts, 70 mile/hour gusts with the wind kind of bouncing over, in particular, eastern and southern Scotland, northern England and parts of Wales. By this stage, the wind's easing off for western Scotland and Northern Ireland later this afternoon. But lively afternoon to come. These colours basically showing where the winds are at their strongest.
It's horrible, really is. But yes, it is getting better. However, for rush hour across more eastern areas, you're going to see that intense rain, those strong winds, and it's only clearing by around midnight, parts of Kent.
Yeah, there's midnight. Any more questions?
Martin Cooper, on the ferry to Holyhead tonight from Dublin, what's the sea state from 9 p.m? Well, the sea state right now is pretty horrific, I would say, with severe gales across Irish Sea coast. And there's a lag time when those winds really ease, and then the sea state eases as well. Obviously, you get those wind waves, but the swell will be significant right the way through the night. So I think it's going to be a bit of a
bit choppy,
uncomfortable one for you. Hope they chat about the score line this PM. That's from Jason Bradley. Yes, we have just done.
Read our
and
minds.
It's so obvious on the model products there. It really is. It's really captured well, and we can really see the change of wind direction, but those really strong winds associated with that sort of zone of cold front, an active cold front.
You can see where the winds change direction, can't you? And also where they just clump together along this score line. And East Anglia, South East England, that's 9 p.m. That's when it looks like it's going to move through there.
Rob Randall, Facebook, they keep saying on Google News, we are in for some Arctic weather. Is this true? Well, the wind direction does change all the time. In fact, if you see the source of the air as it's sort of returning to the UK is coming from the far north there. So yes, we do inherit Arctic blasts from time to time, but I think what maybe news headlines trying to refer to is a proper cold, icy and snowy spell, and moderated by the waters of the Atlantic. No, they are going to be rain showers moving in, only turning to snow over the higher ground. But the air is going to be a lot colder tomorrow, isn't it?
It's dramatically colder overnight, because today temperatures in some places are 12, 13 Celsius, and the air across the UK today is inherently milder than it's been for a long time. But it's only so brief, because then we get the air coming in from the northwest. And let's zoom back in and show you the showers. And, you know, whilst we're going to be talking about hill snow and icy patches over the next few days, it's essentially just typical December weather. So there's nothing particularly extreme, but it is going to be very lively, very changeable. And there's a nice warning in force for northeast Scotland tonight. Let's put that on. These showers in particular, they're coming in, and above 200 metres over central and northern Scotland, you can expect some sleet and snow. Above 400 metres, 2 to 6 centimetres accumulating. And yeah, where these showers fall onto cold ground, there's that risk of some slippery surfaces first thing tomorrow. Stays blustery, doesn't it, overnight? Oh, do you want some water, Claire? I took your water.
Thank you. Sorry about that, everybody. Yeah, you know, it's just a bit dry in here.
So yeah, blustery night to come. Many places clear, central and eastern Britain clear, but frequent showers coming into the north and the west. Hail and thunder and lightning around northern and western coasts of Scotland. Snow, like I say, over the hills. And snow will build up over the mountains of Scotland and some of the higher ground of northern England and Wales during the next few days, doesn't it?
Absolutely. So this is Wednesday, so a bright start for many areas, some sunshine, showers in the west, but again these showers are going to clump together. They're going to merge to form a longer spell of rain, which again could turn to snow even over Pennines.
Yeah, and you can see a few flakes there over the Welsh mountains, but the most significant snowfall will be again over the higher ground of Scotland. At lower levels, like I say, hail and thunder and lightning around the coasts of Scotland, and gale force winds around exposed coasts of Scotland. A blustery breeze elsewhere, staying dry in the east of England until later in the day. Plenty of sunshine here, so pleasant enough Wednesday to come. But yeah, showers essentially on Wednesday. And let's zoom out and show you how we're on the cold side of the jet stream. Here we are.
Look at that. I mean, that jet at the moment, it's unbelievable. What are the max winds in that jet?
I think they're about 200 miles per hour or thereabouts on the other side of the Atlantic. These dark colours here, because what we've got over North America at the moment, let's turn that off, we've got really steep temperature contrast across North America, and that is essentially fueling this powerful limb of the jet stream as it comes out of North America, and that's our weather maker. That deepens areas of low pressure and sends them our way. Now, for the time being, on Thursday, we're on the cold side of the jet stream, and we're going to start to see one of those areas of low pressure move in, and after an initially dry and chilly start, it's going to turn more unsettled through the day with outbreaks of rain and some hill snow. But skipping forward to the end of the week, and you can see that jet stream, the strongest core of it, look at that really interesting shape to it, snake-like across the North Atlantic and heading towards southern parts of the UK. And when it's in that kind of position, well, it just deepens these lows and it sends them in one after the other, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it will do. So what's happening on Thursday?
Well, on Thursday, it's a dry start. We've got cold air across the UK, but we've also got outbreaks of rain moving in. Now, those outbreaks of rain will come through in various bits and pieces, so it's not going to be raining all day. There'll be outbreaks of rain on and off in many places. And as we'll start off the day with some wintry showers in the north of Scotland, but as this rain moves in, you wouldn't rule out some snow over the high ground of northern England as well as southern Scotland, for example.
So bands of rain, there'll be dry weather, wet weather and windy at times, basically.
Yeah, exactly. That low pressure moves out of the way for Friday. Let's watch it move out of the way. You can see that squeeze on the isobars in the southwest. It's going to be really blustery in the southwest on Friday. But Friday's a day where it improves through the day, showers tending to ease, drier and brighter weather in many places compared to Thursday. But yeah, we're still at the mercy of that powerful jet stream, which is still going to send areas of low pressure in. And, you know, when we're looking at such a powerful jet stream at the range of 3, 4, 5 days, then you small subtle differences in exactly where that jet stream will be end up with quite different, quite large differences in terms of the exact weather that we get from it. So how deep these lows go and their exact track. And so what I'm getting at is that it's this area of low pressure that's heading in for the start of the weekend that could cause us some trouble because, and a few people have been talking about snow for the weekend.
Yes, Chris Clifford says, will we see some damaging winds in the east associated with the squall line hate wind? And Jordan Smith saying the weather for the next 2 days in Iceland looks like extreme blizzards and hurricane force winds. Can you tell us more? And Nathan James Hayward, what are the chances of a white Christmas at this stage? So yeah, so there are a lot of interesting questions around this.
Yeah.
Obviously, yes, the winds across East Anglia will pick up before they ease through evening time. By around 10 o'clock, you should see the winds slowly easing. So that's one thing. Yes, Iceland's had the brunt of some really deep areas of low pressure over the last few days, well, last few weeks really, as those lows have just pushed up and then sunk down. And the next few days look like they won't be any different to that. And what are the chances of a white Christmas at this stage, Aidan?
I know that a lot of people have been excited about some early computer model runs. There are 1 or 2 computer models that go out that far, 2 weeks, that, you know, start to throw up all sorts of interesting ideas heading into Christmas. But of course, if you take individual computer model runs, well, such small changes at the beginning can massively alter the difference in 2 weeks' time.
Could be some snow over the Scottish mountains.
Well, even that, it could be really mild.
Could be, yeah.
Could be. I suspect the weather will stay unsettled and, you know, looking towards later next week, it looks like it turns milder. So that's an indication that maybe that we'll lose the cold theme.
Well, look at us. Like today, 13 degrees Celsius, tomorrow 5 degrees Celsius.
Exactly.
You know, it's like that's a change of 8 degrees. David Bennett, Penzance, how strong will the wind be? Well, you're going to get the brunt of the stronger winds over the next 24 hours. It will ease tonight and then it will pick up again tomorrow into Thursday. So yes, you're quite exposed when the lows come in at this level. Yeah,
and we're keeping an eye on the winds. Someone mentioned it earlier, I think, heading into the weekend, because if this system deepens enough, and there are a few computer models that suggest that it would deepen to bring a swathe of strong winds into southern UK, but recent computer model runs, the majority of them have sort of eased off that idea. However, this system is moving into relatively cold air, and when that happens, there's always the potential for some of the white stuff. And again, mostly we're talking through Saturday and into Sunday about the higher ground of, say, central parts of Britain. But certainly something to keep an eye on, because, you know, we're talking about 5 days' time, and often with forecasting snow, it's such slim margins. So yeah, stay tuned, because there is the potential for some places seeing snow into the weekend. I would stick with the idea that it's mainly going to be higher ground areas, but yeah.
Are you doing the 10-day trend tomorrow?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, Alex, hello Alex. He's not feeling very good.
Oh.
No. So
Poor
it'll be
guy.
Aidan tomorrow, and obviously the Weather Snap podcast will be out on Thursday, and a new Mostly Weather will be out next week as well. It will be a Christmas special.
Yeah.
So quite exciting, really.
Yeah, lots to come. Stay tuned. We'll keep you updated right here at the Met Office. You can follow those updates on the social media channels, of course. Hit subscribe on YouTube to not miss one of these. And yeah, thank you for joining us. Thank you for your questions, and see you again soon.
Yeah.